Every story, every 15 minutes. Fox News headlines 24/7 at Channel 115.
I think that there are lots of questions about its legitimacy, and we don't have a method for contesting that in our system. That's why I've long advocated for an independent commission to get to the bottom of what happened.
Hillary Clinton still asking that question. Yes, what happened? The name of her book. And questioning the 2016 election results.
But that's not what she said weeks before Election Day when she was, quote, horrified about President Trump doubting the potential outcome.
And joining us with his reaction is Alan Dershowitz, Harvard law professor emeritus, lifelong Democrat, and author of Trumped Up.
Trumped up.
Thank you. Good morning,
So
sir.
what do you think? I mean, you know, in that last debate, our own Chris Wallace was the moderator.
Right.
And Hillary Clinton was saying, Donald Trump will not say that if he loses, he'll accept the results. That's horrifying. Here we are a year later, Professor.
Everybody should accept the results, but I think we should be looking forward. The one thing I agree with about Hillary Clinton, she said there should be an independent commission set up by Congress to look into not the past, not what happened in the past, but whether Russia is continuing to try to influence American elections. That's an issue for everybody. There should not be any special counsel. There shouldn't be a special counsel against Trump. There shouldn't be a special counsel against Hillary Clinton. There should be no criminal investigations of either of them.
Existing committees in Congress.
No, that's not good enough because they're partisan. There should be a nonpartisan, bipartisan commission representing all Americans looking at how to prevent future influence of Russia because they're going to continue to do this. And they're not going to stop unless the American public demands it.
The American public also has to have faith in their system. And if you have a former presidential candidate a year later, you may want to move on.
Yeah.
But when you're muddying the waters and saying, well, it could have been Russian meddling and there was maybe some election tampering and of the turnout in key swing states, does that not continue to cast into doubt our system?
Of course it does, but I have a question for you guys. Let's assume Trump had lost the election. You think he'd be quiet? Of course he'd be protesting.
He actually said that. He said it was
of
rigged.
course.
Wait, are you saying he'd be on Twitter talking about that?
You know,
Maybe a little.
Why do you think Hillary's doing this?
Well, you know, she has a book. I've read the book. I like the book, in fact. You know, look, it must have been devastating to her to lose this election with everybody said she couldn't possibly lose. And I can just imagine how it's psychologically necessary for her to come back to it. It would be much better if she moved forward and talked about the next election and how to make sure the Russians don't in any way tamper with that one.
I got to get your reaction to something else, which is Al Franken was in the news this week.
Yep.
Admitted to groping a woman, and the Senate Ethics Committee is going to take a look at this. And it's interesting because now most of his Senate colleagues are rallying behind him, at least in saying they deplore the behavior, but let the Ethics Committee move forward, don't leave office. But there are some progressive Democrats around the country saying Al Franken should get out, and maybe Keith Ellison should be appointed by the Democratic governor of Minnesota to be the first Muslim senator in the United States Senate. When he was up for DNC chair, I remember you opposing that.
Not
as a
only
Democrat.
opposing it, I said I would leave the Democratic Party, which I have been active in since 1952, if this bigot became the head of the DNC. This is a man who worked closely with Farrakhan, who looked us in the eye and said, I didn't know Farrakhan was an anti-Semite. Everybody knew that. Farrakhan bragged about it. He called Judaism a gutter religion. So Ellison is either the dumbest man on the planet, saying he didn't know. He's the only person who didn't know, who he's a liar. I think he's both.
Wow.
What does it say about the Democratic Party, though, that he would be a name atop of people's lips?
Well, it's not the progressives. These are the repressives. That's the wing of the Democratic Party that doesn't want to hear any other point of view, that wants the radical hard left to take over the party. It would be the death knell of the Democrats. And I have to tell you, in this country, we're seeing extremism, like in Europe, take over. It's taking over the Democratic Party on the left. We have to stop it. We have to make sure the all right doesn't have influence in the Republican Party. We have to become a centrist country once again, where conservatives talk to liberals like we do on this show.
Professor, we appreciate your very strong views coming on today. Have a wonderful Thanksgiving with your
Thank
family.
you too.
The book is called Trumped Up.
Trumped Up. And I'm going to steal that phrase, the repressives. I like that.
Meanwhile, some people say shopping is their religion. But this mall just took faith to the next level. The owner here next to explain. Some quick headlines for you again. The U.S. Navy and NASA now joining the hunt for a missing Argentine submarine. The ARA San Juan vanishing 250 miles off the coast of Patagonia nearly 3 days ago. U.S. Navy crews sending one of its high-tech surveillance aircrafts to scan the area. NASA also sending a surveillance aircraft to the scene to try and help. The sub was traveling to a naval base south of Buenos Aires. Meanwhile, a massive defense bill is heading to President Trump's desk. The Senate passing the nearly $700 billion plan. If passed, it will give service members raises, increase the military, and authorize new spending on missile defense systems. Pete?
Thank you very much, Ed. Well, while some stores may rely on the latest trends and sales to drive business, one Texas entrepreneur is relying on his belief in God and family values to revive a shopping center.
An 8-foot-tall statue featuring the Ten Commandments will be installed inside the mall, and shoppers will be greeted by a 30-foot by 60-foot American flag outside. The mall's new owner says it's to spread hope and love.
And God and country, for sure. He joins us now via Skype. Music City Mall in Vista Ridge. Is the owner of that mall, John Bushman. John, thanks very much for joining us. So when people think mall, they think stores. They might think flag, but certainly something like the Ten Commandments greeting them in a mall is something a lot of people will not have seen. Where did you come up with this idea?
Well, really, it's no grand marketing plan on my part. I want to point that out, or anyone else's part. But, you know, all of our team members and me have a belief in God, and we just feel like if we expose God's word out to everyone, that it might have an impact on people and be a positive thing for anyone. We intend to make this a family shopping environment for all families. And what families, I think, all have, at least parents, all have a desire for their kids to grow up right. And if they see the Ten Commandments are impacted by it, I think that's a positive thing and a positive statement, and it creates a positive environment where families want to be around. We are going to make this a community center, so we intend and hope for lots of families to come and do it all in one. We call it Music City Mall, where you have it all. Okay. And that's what we're trying to do, is just impact people positively. Sure. We're not denigrating anyone when we do this. We're certainly making the statement that this is our belief, and after all, it is the fundamental piece of God's plan. It goes from loving Him to loving your neighbor.
Absolutely, and I think our world would be a better place. I think our world would be a better place if people follow the Ten Commandments. Nothing wrong with that. I'm a parent, and I'm all for what you're doing. But there have been some Facebook questions about how welcome will people who are not religious feel inside of your establishment.
Well, we just hope that they're impacted positively by it. They don't have to be churchgoers, religious. We just think it connotes love and peace. And that's what we all need more of in this world.
Absolutely.
It's certainly something that we've seen go away from us some in the last 25, 30 years particularly.
Well, certainly stripped out of our public schools.
We all live by those tenets in that Ten Commandments. We'd all enjoy each other a lot more and have less wars and so forth.
This statue is not up in your mall yet, but you plan to have it. You've had it in other businesses, though. So a lot of this has to be based on the reaction people have. What has the overall reaction been to when you display those Ten Commandments?
Overall reaction has been very good. Of all the comments that people have made to me over the 21 years that we installed the first one, we now have, this will be about the 15th one that we have at different industries, our hotels, fast food restaurant chain, and the other mall we have here in Odessa. But I can tell you that probably 25 to 50 to 1 have commented positively about it. Not all people are bad in this world. 99% of them are very good, and it's easy to forget that. And they're very, very appreciative of it and being a guidepost for their lives and their kids' lives.
John Bushman. The mall is the Vista Ridge Mall. What town is it in again, sir?
At Louisville, Texas. Actually, we call it Music City Mall Louisville is a proper name today.
Music City Mall Louisville. So if you're down there, check it out. John, thank you very much. They may be able to take God out of the public square, but they can't take it out of your business, and that's great to see. We appreciate your time.
Thank you very much, sir. I appreciate the opportunity to go before you guys this morning.
You got it. Have a great day.
Thank you.
All right, coming up, one church sending a clear warning to any bad guys out there. We are heavily armed inside our church. Their message next.
Plus, one of 3 Americans won't talk politics this Thanksgiving. It's just too divisive. Or will you be one of them?
Will you be one of them? I know you know who you are. And speaking of Thanksgiving, we have tips to take your pumpkin pie to the next level. More food.
Wow, more food, Pete.
It's like Christmas for Thanksgiving.
You better get over here.
I will.
We're jumping in. Thank you. Thank you.
Agreed. No, I said need. All I'm trying to say is don't we all just get loaded down with all this stuff that we don't need? We get fat. Big gobs of human fat choking the economy.
No politics on Thanksgiving.
Yeah. That could be your table during Thanksgiving or Christmas.
It could be. It's so funny, though. We knew that last Thanksgiving was going to be heated, right? It was right after the election. Who would have thought that a year later, it's still heated?
Maybe even hotter.
Maybe more, right?
Right,
very
true.
true. Well, there's a new Reuters Ipsen poll out that caught our eye on this very topic. It asked the question, will you participate in political conversation during either Thanksgiving or Christmas with your family? Well, here's the results. 21% say they will engage in that conversation. 31% say no, thank you. And almost 50% do not typically discuss politics.
So what happens at your Christmas, your Thanksgiving?
Yeah,
you
we
guys talk politics?
usually talk politics because of my job, and my wife's in the media as well. So it's sort of, you can't escape it, but we don't dwell on it. And we usually talk more family, and I like to talk football. It's sports. It's Thanksgiving. But I think football, it could be better. But this year, it's become political as well.
Yeah.
Totally. On my side, one side of the family is Republican, the other side of the family is traditionally largely Democrat. So on one side, we do talk politics, the other one's a little bit more. But that's more, I would love to talk about it. But some people don't really like to, as that poll attests to. How about for you? I mean, your husband a congressman, his family is Democrats, though.
No, yeah, his parents are Democrats, so, you know, you can't escape it. But, you know, what's nice is when you have a mixed family and you realize love is more important, I do think they find a way to talk about it without hurting each other's feelings, and they definitely know when to stop.
That's key.
Which is important.
That's key. And having kind of a lighthearted spirit with it all. Can't we all kind of laugh at ourselves a little bit, too, and realize that we're in a pretty interesting political time?
I love the advice that we had in the last segment about from the doctor, where she said, you know, that poll said that, you know, if it all gets heated, just start talking about other family members.
Oh, just start gossiping.
Just start gossiping about your family, and that gets everybody off politics.
I thought it was cute, too. Last year, Pete, at the Thanksgiving table, he carved in failing New York Times into the side of the turkey. It's just something that he likes to do no matter what.
My design is going to be FNN, Fake News Network, on the pies.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah, that's what's coming next. Yes. I mean, we got a lot going on here. You gotta have fun with it. Oh, and we've got, we're up to date here. We got a new tweet from President Trump. He's
talking about politics not going away.
Yeah, that's exactly right. This is what he had to say. He said, crooked Hillary Clinton is the worst and biggest loser of all time. She just can't stop, which is so good for the Republican Party. Hillary, get on with your life and give it another try in 3 years.
He loves the idea of facing Hillary Clinton again.
I just think any one of those matchups, Hillary Clinton, you know, Bernie Sanders, Joe Biden, Mark Cuban, any one of those would be an election. We thought the last one was a barn burner. Can you imagine those debates?
Amazing.
Can you imagine? Can they have like 10 of them, please?
Tim Kaine is saying no superdelegates this time around, though. So she's going to have, if she wants to run, she's going to have to do it without the superdelegates.
Yeah, she's got to. Can she win it when it's not rigged? Probably not.
Well, let's hope they try and unrig that primary, and we'll get a little more competition in the Democrat primary. Turning now to your headlines, Roy Moore's wife now leading the charge against his critics. Kayla Moore defending her husband amid allegations the Alabama Senate candidate pursued sexual relationships with teenage girls when he was in his 30s.
And after all the attacks against me, against my family, against the foundation, and now against my husband, he will not step down.
This comes as Alabama Governor Kay Ivey says she still will vote for Moore, even though she says she actually believes his accusers. The Reverend Jesse Jackson making the announcement that he's battling Parkinson's disease. The 76-year-old political and social activist says he first noticed symptoms about 3 years ago and was diagnosed in 2015. Jackson released a statement on Friday vowing to keep hope alive. The disease claimed his father's life. A church congregation has a warning for mass shooters. We're heavily armed, we're packing heat, and we will kill you. These signs outside the river of Tampa Bay now going viral in the wake of the church shooting in Sutherland Springs, Texas, earlier this month. But the church says those signs were up a year before the massacre. Pastors saying that they are just following the teachings of Jesus Christ by protecting parishioners. And your dog could literally be saving your life. That's according to a new study in a Swedish publication. Those researchers following a 3.4 million people over 12 years old, finding that adults living alone with a dog were 33% less likely to die during the study than adults without dogs. And single adults with dogs were also 36% less likely to die from cardiovascular disease. I may have to get that dog for my daughter who... And those are your headlines, everybody. Let's go over to Pete.
So much for going to the dogs.
I know. But everyone loves, pretty much everyone loves, we don't need to be hyperbolic. Everyone loves a good pumpkin pie on Thanksgiving. But if you want to take yours to the next level, this is the segment for you.
You're tongue-tied. You're so excited about the pumpkin pie. Me too.
Right now.
Chef Thierry Dorneau is the executive pastry chef at a hotel I know well in Washington, the St. Regis Hotel. You guys have a great restaurant there. And you are trying to take pumpkin pie to the next level.
Make it great again is what you're doing.
Exactly.
Make pumpkin pie great again. Tell us about it.
Well, basically, first of all, thank you for having me.
Thank you.
I'm going to do basically that pumpkin pie to a classic, to a more like glamour. Which is what I like to say also, shishi fufu. At the St. Regis, it is what we do. Everything is like the wow factor, basically.
So do you bring in some new ingredients? Because everyone, sometimes people, it gets boring. It's like, oh, the same old pumpkin pie. What do you bring?
It is not the same one. Basically, you have the most basic one, which is like the pumpkin puree. But originally, I'm from the Caribbean. So we do it with like a sweet potato. So I mix both. I have 10% of my puree, and I mix it with like the sweet potato. And of course, you have the same spice, fresh ginger, the condensed milk. But to get like a great pie, you need to have a great pie recipe dough, and as well also the filling. So basically, I'm going to show...
This is how you're going to glam it, right?
That exact. I'm going to glamour it. I'm going to glamour it. I have my whipped cream. I'm going to do like some rosette, basically, just like that.
By the way, this is fun with kids.
Yes.
They love this.
They love it. And actually, we have a ginger class at for the holiday at the St. Regis, Washington, D.C. So any kids want to take on...
What day do you do that?
That will be for the first 3 Saturdays of the month.
You make this ahead of time?
Yes, I made it ahead of time.
Make this ahead of time, the day
some
before.
sugar cookies, some cranberry, and you have some sugar cookie with some sugar on the top. So I make it like, as we like to say, very fancy.
So as if there's not enough sugar in the pumpkin pie, you got to put sugar.
Yes, you have to. You have to. You have to.
Kids love anything that's glitter. So tell us about this gold.
That's the gold. The gold people really like to have. It's really like eatable, and you make it very fancy actually.
Where do you buy this?
You will not find it like on the market. Basically, with some special supplier, I get it done. I get it done. Yeah, I get it done.
Look at that.
So. And I have like some slice like for you already.
I don't think I've ever eaten gold.
Here we go, right here for you.
All right, let's try it.
And let me know.
I think I read that you're a salsa dancer. Is that right?
Yes, I do.
Why don't you show us a little bit?
Well, do you salsa?
No, that's so great.
I need to have the music on. Yeah, like basically we're going to do that. You know?
Wait, here we go.
I can make you turn, and you turn. We will go, and you go to step.
I'm embarrassed. I'm Latina, and I'm terrible salsa dancer, but you rock.
But you are doing just fine.
Where's the music for that?
Yes, one thing is very important also. At the St. Regis, during the holiday, we have a lot going on.
Yeah. Letters for Santa program.
A letter for Santa. Basically, we have like 3 charities, and people can write a letter, and the St. Regis will give like $1 donation to every. And you have some family who cannot afford it, and we are going to cover everything, providing that special gift for Christmas.
Well, that's a great idea by St. Regis, Washington. Thierry, we appreciate being here. This is wonderful. And you're a great dancer, too. So.
Well, I'm trying to. I'm trying to.
That pie?
Yeah, that's for you. That's for you guys who like to enjoy.
We are going to give it to our floor staff because they've been working hard.
Not our producers.
And we're super excited. We're not going to let the producers eat it at all. But Thierry, thanks for coming.
Thank you. I appreciate having you again. Thank you.
Great seeing you. Still ahead. The Congressional Hispanic Caucus refusing to allow Congressman Carlos Curbelo, a Cuban American, to join them. Why is that? Because he's too conservative. The congressman here to respond next.
Plus, Rick Reichmuth is at Santa's Wonderland at Bass Pro Shops. He's got a very special guest.
Ooh, I think
joining him soon.
Santa, maybe?
Or maybe an elf. What about Mrs. Claus? You never know.
All right. What a great show. This is awesome.
Fox and Friends Weekend Edition. Some quick headlines for you. Authorities at this hour are investigating a threat made against the annual Gettysburg Remembrance Day parade scheduled for today in Pennsylvania. Local police now beefing up security and working with state police and the FBI to keep people safe all weekend long. The FBI says the threat, which was made in a letter sent to a local paper, is credible. And the ATF now investigating a massive fire at a senior living facility, sending 27 people to the hospital. Thankfully, no one was seriously injured, though nearly 200 senior citizens were forced into 40-degree temperatures. Federal agents now working in Westchester, Pennsylvania, in hopes of finding answers.
He's a Cuban-American congressman representing Miami. So why would the Congressional Hispanic Caucus reject him as a member?
Well, the caucus, made up entirely of Democrats, that might be the clue, rejecting Congressman Carlos Curbello's bid to join because he doesn't share their, quote, values.
Republican Florida Congressman Carlos Curbello joins us now on the Kirby Couch. Thank you for being here, sir.
It's great to be here.
You are welcome in the Fox and Friends caucus.
Well, that's nice. That's nice. I'm feeling a little rejected these days.
I know you are. Did you expect that rejection? Was this a stunt, or was this, hey, I want to be a part of this group because I'm a Hispanic, I'm a congressman, and I should be?
In January, I had the first meeting with the chairwoman of the Congressional Hispanic Caucus saying, I really want to join. I think we should all work together. We know that there are issues we won't agree, but there are some where we will agree. And it's important, I think, to be together. And Mia Love from Utah really inspired me. She's a Republican congresswoman from Utah. She's African-American. And the CBC, the Congressional Black Caucus, let her in. Yeah. And she told me that it's wonderful that she's gotten to know a lot of the members and they find common ground. Of course they disagree, but I figured it would be a good idea. And hey, I'm Hispanic, so why not?
Well, maybe they're saying
crazy
you're not.
Idea, right?
Well, I think perhaps for them, being Hispanic means that you can only have liberal views. And that's unfortunate because I view that as segregation.
It is. And Representative, I'm a fellow Hispanic. I've come against this kind of discrimination, really it is. I don't look at ideas as Hispanic or black or white. They're either good ideas or bad ideas. They're effective ideas or they don't work. I mean, what do you say to that?
I'd say, for example, look, I agree with a lot of the members in the caucus about how we should handle dreamers in this country, the young people who were brought through no fault of their own. They were minors. And I think that's a wonderful issue where we can work together. But I think they prefer to play petty political games. And it's a shame because the institution of the House is the one that suffers. And I think their caucus loses credibility.
And here's what the caucus says. I want to read that. They say the CHC, Hispanic Caucus, is not just an organization for Hispanics. It's a caucus that represents certain values.
There you go.
Right. This vote reflects the position of many of our members that Representative Curbello and his record are not consistent with those values. That seems pretty subjective that, hey, you don't belong here, buddy.
And my question is, what about the value of diversity? Isn't that an important
Which
value?
is what they're supposed to be promoting in that caucus,
right?
I think?
And doesn't it help to have different perspectives at the table and people learn from each other? That was the idea.
I'd also say that, you know, when you give, as a community, as a Hispanic community, if we give all our power over to one party, we lose power. There's something really great about having both parties competing for us and trying to find solutions. So
exactly. And
I'm so glad you're bringing this to
the other thing I told him was when constituents back home in South Florida, I represent the southernmost district in Florida all the way down to Key West. When they come to my office asking for help, I don't ask them what party they're in or how they think about different issues. I help them.
Well, Congressman, we hope the people in Key West obviously are recovering from very
getting better.
storms.
Still tough, but it's getting better.
We wish you well and happy Thanksgiving.
Thank you all. Happy Thanksgiving. Sure, my pleasure. Thank you.
All right. Well, Apple's brand new. Speaking of diversity, they have a diversity chief fired after only 6 months on the job. Apparently because she was too inclusive. We'll have to ask those questions. David Webb here to react to that next hour.
And it could be the first case of its kind. Doctors say an 11-month-old child may have died from a marijuana overdose. How could that happen? Wow. Dr. Mike is here to discuss next.
Hey, doctor.
What started? Well, the tragic death of an 11-month-old 2 years ago is sparking debate in the medical community. Now, the baby died of damage to his heart muscle, and now 2 doctors claim it could be linked to ingesting marijuana. The doctor saying the case was the first reported pediatric death associated with cannabis exposure.
But is this the first case, actually, of death by marijuana overdose? Let's bring in Dr. Michael Warshawski to weigh in on this. Dr. Mike, obviously you see states like Colorado now legalizing marijuana in recent years. People have concerns what impact that has for people on their driving, for example. But now, what if a child gets that marijuana? What are your thoughts on this case?
Well, this is an interesting case report, and that's what's important to remember here, that this is a case report. This is not a scientific study that's making a clear causation. This is not what this is. The doctors only see an association. Why? Because there were no other reasons why this baby was to have myocarditis, and the baby did ingest a large amount of cannabis, not passively ingested. The family was living from motel to motel. They were claiming that they did have drugs around the house. So this was a strong possibility. So doctors did this case report for other medical professionals to have the ability to suspect that, hey, if a child comes in with similar presentation, we can now look to this article as a guide of what we can do.
Right. I mean, we're seeing, you know, a lot of people trying to minimize and say how harmless. We know it's a gateway drug, marijuana, but what should parents really be taking away from this information?
Look, in the age of legalized marijuana, and that's happening more and more within our country, we have to be cognizant that it's a drug, that it has side effects, that if it's available to our kids, they might ingest it, whether it's by accident or because they're curious.
Right.
So we need to educate our parents. When someone walks into my office, and even if I get the sense that they may be using some kind of illicit substances, I don't necessarily tell them that they have to get off them. I give them the health consequences, and they have to make the decision to come off. But if I know they have a child in their home, it's very important that they keep that child safe. And if I feel that child is in danger, that takes my level of involvement in this case to a higher level.
Absolutely.
Wow. And so what do you think parents should think about moving forward in terms of protecting their children?
Well, it's difficult to say we know all the symptoms of ingestion of marijuana, especially in the pediatric population. There have been some sparse case reports like this one of myocarditis, which means inflammation of the heart muscle, with other ingestions of marijuana in teenage populations, but we don't have a clear set of symptoms. The Hospital of Colorado put out these 3 great warning signs that parents can look for: lack of balance, unusual sleepiness, difficulty with breathing. But these are non-specific symptoms. Okay,
so parents just have to keep an eye out. We appreciate you coming in, Dr. Mike.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Meanwhile, did President Trump just challenge Hillary Clinton to a rematch in 2020? Geraldo Rivera will talk about it, top of the hour. And this rising country star just released his first music video. It features the man who killed Osama bin Laden, Rob O'Neill. Rob and Tim Montana, both here, live, coming up. An all-out search underway at this hour for a cop killer near Pittsburgh.
We need to find the person that did this.
Between new sexual misconduct allegations, political infighting, and worries over the party's future, has this been maybe the worst week ever for Democrats?
Democrat Kirsten Gillibrand told the New York Times she now believes President Clinton should have resigned.
This country had a reckoning over Bill Clinton's behavior.
Do you think it was a legitimate election?
I think that there are lots of questions about its legitimacy.
It must have been devastating to her to lose this election. It would be much better if she moved forward.
Which senators could actually end up holding up tax reform? Some usual suspects that you see there.
I want to ask you, is Ambassador Kislyak in the room before I get started here? Any Russians?
A new survey says American couples spend more than 5 days a year deciding what to eat.
What do you want? What do you want?
It's not that simple.
What do you want?
The story of my life, I give up. I spend a love.
Yeah, now you're talking 1D.
You're
I love this
One
song.
Direction.
Loves this
right.
song.
known as 1D by it.
I love Imagine Dragons. I don't know why we played that earlier. I loved it.
And I think
the music's
kind of
been going downhill since then.
It's been going down. It has. We don't get to pick the music.
But Rachel's
here. She is.
I've never heard 1D. You must be like an Uber fan, like that you were able to abbreviate in such a...
Oh, now.
Going on. No, we're really
enjoying
excited.
this.
I'm loving it. You guys are great. This
Well, you're
is
doing a
all-
great
so
job.
much
We
fun.
love having you
Thank you.
It's also we got a lot of Midwest going on here. We got Minnesota and Wisconsin.
In the house.
Where are you?
Sorry, I'm from New York.
Yeah, and then we got New York.
But we got our man Geraldo Rivera. He's right in the heartland. He's in Ohio, joining us from Cleveland. And Geraldo, it's interesting because here we are more than a year after the 2016 election, and Hillary Clinton is still saying there are questions about whether Donald Trump was legitimately elected. And Donald Trump, a couple of moments ago, responded. Let's hear from Hillary, and then we'll have you weigh in. Here's what she said.
I think that there are lots of questions about its legitimacy, and we don't have a method for contesting that in our system. That's why I've long advocated for an independent commission to get to the bottom of what happened.
And the president, just a moment ago, tweets, "Crooked Hillary Clinton is the worst and biggest loser of all time. She just can't stop, which is so good for the Republican Party. Hillary, get on with your life and give it another try." Although then he says, give it another try in 3 years. So, Geraldo, he's not really saying move on. He's saying, come at me, bro.
Yeah, so would I if I were him. I think she'd probably be the worst candidate the Democrats could possibly muster. First of all, good morning to all of you. I'm very jealous I didn't get some of that pumpkin pie, my very favorite. And Rachel, you and I should go and picket in front of the Congressional Democratic Caucus, a Hispanic caucus. We should let them force them to open it bipartisan as it should be for these issues of mutual concern. In terms of the First Lady, the former First Lady, Secretary of State, Senator from New York, you know, I would hope, and it's very painful to watch Secretary Clinton as she sells this book, trying to rewrite history. She ran the most lackluster, low-energy campaign. It was rigged. The Democratic National Committee rigged to give her the nomination over Bernie Sanders, never giving him a real Democratic shot at it. There's so much distasteful in terms of the remnants of her campaign. I would wish that she would move on, be the emeritus person, be the noble person, once the most highly regarded woman on the planet. Let her be an example. But to run again, to think of her running again in politics after the Donna Brazile revelations, I think it would be a disaster for the Democrats. That's why the president is taunting her.
Geraldo, I saw you last night on Judge Jeanine, and the topic was Al Franken. And you said something that really caught my eye. You said his career is over. And then you said that there's going to be a lot of other public, high-profile figures that are going to fall as they catch up to what's happening in terms of sexual harassment.
I think, first of all, Rachel, that the sexual harassment epidemic, this plague, is out. It's out of the bottle. It's now it's infecting our society here and abroad. No one is in control of this scandal. No one knows where it's going to go. You know, because some of these allegations going back 10, 20, 30, 40 years. My goodness, who touched who inappropriately? Who said something that now, in the light of 2017 rules, would be considered inappropriate? I just think that with this genie out of the bottle, nobody knows, you know, how many lives are going to be really chopped up. Al Franken's a classic example. Here's a progressive, ex-Saturday Night Live, cool guy. You know, who knows? I knew a writer on Saturday Night Live, a female writer, who used to complain constantly about the misogyny in Saturday Night Live. Is Saturday Night Live now going to be the next one exposed for its alleged misogyny over the years? Politics, business, media. You know, this thing is going places nobody can control. Franken, specifically, he was, as I said last night, Rachel, he was my #1 candidate for the Democrats to run an effective race against Donald Trump.
Well, to that point,
now his career is over.
Well, it certainly, maybe that trajectory is for sure. The swamp, the president talks about the swamp all the time, the institutions that exist to perpetuate the status quo. It looks like there's a swamp inside a committee called the Senate Ethics Committee, because Al Franken and other Democrats say, well, I'll submit myself to the Senate Ethics Committee, or he should go before the Senate Ethics Committee for an investigation. You know, a little bit of research shows that in the last decade, 27 to 2007 to 2016, there have been 613 allegations before that committee, 75 preliminary investigations, all anonymous, and 0 consequences for any senators. So is this not the committee where accusations go to die? Is this not the swamp? And should Democrats be called out for not taking any real action?
Well, I think those are all excellent questions. And I think specifically honing in on the Senate Ethics Committee particularly, I think that a real lobbying effort should be made for them to be forced to make public these accusations. Now, the accuser can be protected. Those who fear their career would be endangered, or the ridicule or embarrassment of having admitted something that happened to them. Maybe they're married and they've gone on in their life, and now they have to dredge up all those bad memories to make a charge against a senator, a sitting senator. I think that they have to do an adjustment, make the rules 21st century rules. But I also think that you need a fair arbiter. We have to be as fair to the accused as we are now to the accuser. Maybe it was skewed before. Maybe the accused had all of the rights. Usually a guy could, make a non-disclosure agreement or do a payoff on a kind of a periodic basis. We'll give you 100,000 this year, 100,000 next year. Just keep your mouth shut. Maybe the deck has been stacked against the victims, but we don't want a kind of a climate now where you encourage blackmail, where you encourage dredging up or embellishing stories. I think you've got to be very fair about it. The Senate Ethics Committee is not bad, but I would venture to say, everyone's talking about the $17 million Congress has paid to the purported victims. There's an assumption, I think, in everyone's mind, that's all a bunch of bad Republicans. It's all a bunch of bad Democrats. I would venture to say that if you want true bipartisanship, it's in the perpetrators whose deeds were paid off by Congress.
And in the
secretly.
covering up for each other. I mean, talk about a system that defends itself for their own self-interest.
Well, thank you, Geraldo. Always
I
great
agree.
insight from you.
Thanks a lot. Geraldo Rivera.
Okay.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Good to see you.
Okay.
Turning now to your headlines, starting with a Fox News alert. 2 police officers murdered in 2 states, an urgent manhunt for the killers intensifying. 25-year-old Brian Shaw was gunned down overnight near Pittsburgh after a tragic stop turned into a foot chase. Shaw had been on the force for less than a year. And in Baltimore, police still searching for Detective Sean Suiter's killer. The 18-year veteran shot Wednesday when an approaching suspect. They have no leads, and they are offering a $215,000 reward for information leading to an arrest. Storms bringing snow and heavy winds to the West Coast, now moving east. This all happening ahead of a busy holiday travel rush. Here you see drivers navigating through dangerous road conditions in Colorado. Heavy rains and winds are expected from Washington, D.C. to Boston tonight and into tomorrow. Florida's Democratic Party chairman resigns over sexual harassment allegations. Politico reports 6 women accuse Stephen Biddle of staring inappropriately and making suggestive remarks. None of the women said he groped or assaulted them. 4 Democratic candidates for governor said he should step down. Biddle has apologized, and he says he's working to find a successor. An emotional Danica Patrick announcing she will retire from full-time racing next season.
Thank you to my mom and dad, my sister, Chase, Ricky. Thank you for everything.
Patrick, a pioneering driver in the sport, says she's planning to race in both the Indy and Daytona 500 next season before calling it quits. And tomorrow, Dale Earnhardt Jr. getting behind the wheel for his final race. The NASCAR icon announced his retirement earlier this year. And those are your headlines, guys.
A couple of icons there. I don't know much about NASCAR, but I know those are both 2
I've
popular
been to
people.
one race, and I have to tell you, it was awesome.
It would be cool.
Loud, but awesome.
Yeah, I need the headphones. Still ahead, Senator Jeff Flake caught on a hot mic with some harsh words, yes, for President Trump, saying the Republican Party could be toast. But who is really a bigger problem for the party? David Webb has his answer. I think I know what it might be.
Maybe. We'll see. And it's a question asked by couples everywhere. What should we eat? I mean, we ask it every day, all the time. But wait until you hear how long it takes us to make up our minds.
What do you want? What do you want?
It's not that simple.
What do you want?